Hello, YouTube. This is the Galley La Podcast, and today we are going to be having a One Piece discussion video on the topic on whether Gear 5 is too strong at this point in the story. Okay, so not period, but just at this point in the story, is it too powerful? So please like and subscribe if you are not. I am Akainu Fanboy, and the other guy is Geboss.
Yo.
So, okay. Let's just say, what are your, just like briefly tell me, do you think it's like yes, no, or kind of, if you were to say, just briefly, what do you think about this question?
I would say yes, but I think it has a sufficient amount of drawbacks.
Okay.
What about you?
I think I agree with you. I would say the past couple of chapters. Okay, wait, Adam, sorry, real quick, but let's just do like a spoiler warning, leading up to it, where let's just say up to One Piece chapter 1119. I just want to establish that there's spoiler warning for those people. Okay, so
Yeah.
anyways, when it comes to like, I'd say the last couple of chapters, the drawback hasn't been as pronounced, I think. Seems to be a little quicker, and that just might be for sake of plots and not necessarily. Okay, so I think like with Kaido, maybe that's like our first test case there, where I had less of an issue with it because I guess you could say it kind of looks like he was curb stomping Kaido for a lot of it, because you could just say he was weakened by so many other people throughout this fight, and right, so it seems like less controversial in that sense, and all the rest. But like, I think there's like, this is an element too I just kind of want to lay out to the get-go. This is one thing I do not personally like about Gear 5, is that it takes away a lot of the drama and the intensity of Luffy getting hurt like he previously did in all of the other forms, because he's such a jokey character. We don't see him like, even if he does take pain, it's hard to tell if he actually takes pain. And if you don't get the sense that he's actually taking pain, then it takes away a lot of the tension from the story, in my humble opinion, and from fights,
Well, I think that's just what Oda wants, because he said that he doesn't want the final fight to be that serious, or the final arc. But I can see where you're coming from, because even when we were back with Kaido's fight, when Luffy would ever get hit, like when he got hit with his club and it like protruded from the front of his face and everything, it's like, okay, did he get hit there? Like, did that cause damage or no? But
right.
I don't know. I feel that it's I feel like Gear 5, the strength of it is that it's so jokey and it's unpredictable, though.
I agree, and I think just part of the reason why we think it's so strong is because since we can't see the registered damage at all, like you don't know if anyone's actually doing damage to him, so ergo he seems OP as shit, right?
Yeah, well, we see like just in this latest chapter, Luffy does get burned, and he does say that it's hot and everything from Mars's breath in his form. But we do see that, so and he does say that it hurts when everyone's attacking him with hockey, so
yeah. And maybe that's like another, this isn't me trying to be overly negative or critical, but showing versus telling in a story, where like Luffy didn't have to say like Luffy versus Lucci in Water 7, ow, that hurt from the Rokogan. You're just like, oh, okay, yeah, he just got obliterated by that attack just now, and I think that kind of just talks about like the fight quality in a little bit, in that sense, where I guess like you're right. You can say like, oh, well, technically it did say it hurt him, but maybe like I guess like kind of part of my critique whether the Gear 5 is too strong is like how the portrayals of him taking pain is just not as apparent to me, and I just wish there was a way he could balance that out more, where like you could show him in pain and hurt, while still having this jokey persona, Because I think Gear 4 struck that balance a bit, you know, I think quite well.
Yeah. But I just wanted, speaking of different gears though, I wanted to touch on the fact that it seemed like all the gears had a drawback when they were initially introduced that Luffy just kind of got over, you know? So
yeah.
So well, with Gear 2nd he got kind of tired after I'm thinking specifically with Bluno, but he had his pocket meat.
Right.
And with Gear 3rd he shrunk. Gear 4th he was out of commission for like 10 minutes. But it seemed like I mean, even in the next arc with Whole Cake, he kind of got over the whole thing with Gear 4th. So do you think that Oda's just kind of usher aside the drawbacks of Gear 5? Because if he does that, I would think that it's way too overpowered at this point.
Yeah, I just like
At that point,
quickly with the Whole Cake thing though. But there was a point where he did power down with Brulee's mirror and everything, and he jumped out and he couldn't use Haki or anything when Amande attacks him and they're in the Peanut Island, I think. Yeah. So he did power down on that part.
Okay, so by Wano it was gone.
Yeah, he seems that way. Yeah, maybe like the only time you could say is when he got knocked off the skull and Law's crew like fed him again. Maybe that's like the closest you could say. But yeah, it definitely wasn't as apparent. Yeah, I will grant you that for sure. So sorry, wait, what was the point you just asked me just now?
I mean, if it gets to that point where you kind of just ignore all the drawbacks of Gear 5, like with Luffy powering down, then I would think that Gear 5 is too overpowered.
Right.
Because at this point, like, he requires a lot of stuff to refill himself with food. Whoever snuck it to him on Egghead, he had to have the whole thing with Caribou at Wano, and then and this
the mysterious food vendor at Egghead.
Yeah, that's what I meant. And then like literal giant food that can satisfy him. So unless he's carrying around all that, I think Gear 5 does have the amount of drawback necessary for it to not be too overpowered.
Yeah, even his battle against Lucci, I thought it was fascinating because in the anime, because the manga was a little unclear, but in the anime it shows like after Lucci gets shot through that building as the final attack, he doesn't necessarily get KO'd. You see some bandages on him, right? But he looks like he's still conscious, and then immediately it cuts to Luffy, and Luffy's in the shriveled up man form, basically old man form. So he even like tapped out right there, and I think Luffy's clearing it away stronger than Lucci, but I think it is fascinating to think like if Luffy didn't get on there for like plot reasons, could Lucci have just like finished him off in that form, you know? So maybe that's a way you can see it like balancing out Gear 5 in that sense, you know? So, and I guess this kind of gets on more to the Kizaru topic where I think like one way you can, okay, so yeah, like when you talk about Gear 5 in the abstract and everything, like should Luffy have been like, you know, beating down Kaido the way he did, you know, as one Yonko to another? It just seems so one-sided, you know? But you could say like, oh, well, he got weakened, right? And everything like that, you know? And then people consider it a good fight. No, but one thing I do kind of find interesting, I remember watching a Mr. Mork stream, I think like a couple of months ago, and someone, I think, shot over a chat question to him, and they made the point saying Luffy versus Kizaru is one of the worst fights I've ever seen in terms of like the amount of expectation and hype to it. You know, it just doesn't really seem like that great of a fight. And I was kind of cheering over that a bit, where I don't know, it's like, I mean, I never thought of it that way, but have we like even evaluated the fight in terms of like, is it like a great fight, you know? Like has the community really like said like, wow, this is like one of the greatest fights Oda's ever done, you know? And I guess like the point I'm trying to get that done was like, do we see that as like an actual fight, like a 1v1 thing, or was it like more of a situational conflict where Kizaru is trying to kill Vegapunk and Luffy's trying to defend Vegapunk? You know what I mean?
I don't know. I'll have to reread it, but from the way that I saw it, it was pretty straight up fight with what they had on hand, like their abilities
So I thought,
and everything.
yeah.
So
I thought Gear 4 versus Kizaru seemed like kind of a more clash, but then like as the plot started to change a little bit, it seemed more like the focus became more kill Bonnie, kill Vegapunk, and like he's trying to kill the Straw Hats. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, because like honestly, for me, I wouldn't say like when I think of like the amazing top fights in One Piece, I wouldn't consider Kizaru versus Luffy as one of them. Or nor would also I would say I would extend this too, but this might have to do with the nature of the fights in Egghead. I wouldn't say the same about Luffy versus the Gorosei. You know, that was like some of the most hyped fights ever. You know, because like I think kind of the nature of the arc makes it more like both sides are trying to get to A and B, if you will. It's not like a full KO fight, if that makes sense. You know.
Yeah, well, the way that I kind of think about it, the way that you laid it out, it reminds me of the Escape from Impel Down, where Magellan's chasing them, and like Luffy was fighting him with Mr. Three's help and everything, but I don't think it was like a straight up one-on-one fight. He had the one-on-one fight earlier when he lost, but when everyone's escaping, that was just kind of trying to push him back, you know?
Yeah, it's kind of like in Marineford, how you could kind of say Marco versus Kizaru, but there was other stuff going on that distracted them both.
Yeah,
you know,
it's just kind of when there's this much going on, it's hard to distinguish like even like Enies Lobby. It's like, okay, this is the clear matchup: Luffy versus Lucci, Zoro versus Kanku.
Exactly.
So, I mean, Kizaru did go up against Luffy one-on-one though.
No, he did, yeah, and I'm not trying to undercut that. Yeah.
But I mean, in terms of Gear 5 strength, I would say that we did see. I think there's two big things that kind of, for me, kind of push up the strength of it a lot, which is Bajrang gun, literally the size of an island, and then the pizza attack, where he literally smushed Saturn and Kizaru together and basically one-shot Kizaru at that point, because Kizaru hasn't come back from that.
So I wouldn't say, okay, like I call you biased here. Like I acknowledge my bias, but I think it's pretty clear with the narrative he's like right after, like he's just emotionally done. You know, like it's just like because right before that he killed Vegapunk, and then that's when he tapped out right after he got hit too, and he's just like, I kind of just like. And I think that with like the cover story, I'm sorry, no, the new manga cover that's coming out, like I think if you look at those cues and just if you were to like reread it too, I think it's like there's a strong narrative thing for he regrets and he feels guilt for what he did, you know, and yeah, because he doesn't look like he looks beat up, but he doesn't look like horrifically like KO'd beyond belief, if that makes sense, you know, where he is on the ship, you know, right now, you know.
I mean, I'm just saying that Luffy could do that to anyone though, in terms of his strength. We're not talking about Kizaru's durability and everything. We're talking about if Gear 5 is too busted.
Yeah. So I would say like, I'm not trying to make it like a power scaling thing. I guess like the point is like with Kaido, you can say he got weakened down, and that can explain why he got dominated so bad, right? And I think partially with Kizaru, you could say two things. One, he's emotionally conflicted. He's not 100% in, which I don't think that's too hard of a cope. I'm not saying like he's not trying. I think he is trying, but at the same time, to say like he's 100% and like he usually is, I think it's kind of a little bit of a stretch to say too. I think there's been a lot of narrative cues here that he's like, I mean, he just killed one of his best friends. He really messed up Sentomaru. He has connections to Nika, you know, and right. So there's a lot of other stuff here too going on too. And then I would say the second part of it too is the situational nature of it. Like you said, it's not like a KO 1v1 kind of thing, like a Lucci versus Luffy in Water 7. It's more like Kizaru was trying to kill Vegapunk and then Luffy was trying to defend Vegapunk, you know? So it's kind of different, the nature of it too, because it kind of puts us in a weird place of the power scaling of the Gorosei, because they're not trying to KO the Straw Hats per se right now. They're trying to stop Vegapunk's message, right? They're trying to kill Bonnie. They're trying to, it's more situational by its nature, you know? So I think like that's kind of one of the issues here though too, is like maybe, so I guess there's two ways to look at it. The times where we've seen Luffy go up against very, very high tiers, there's kind of been things in the plot to mitigate the antagonist's full potential in a way. Or you could simply say there's the drawbacks with Luffy that makes him that makes up for the OP-ness of his form, basically, you know. And those are kind of, I think, the two options, and I think they can both be true at the same time. There could be things that were mitigating the strength of the antagonist, and then there's the drawbacks of Gear 5, which then balance out Gear 5 as a whole.
Yeah, I agree, but what you were saying about Kaido though earlier, about he was just worn down with Gear 5, I feel that just another strength of Gear 5 is that Luffy can literally like pull anything out and just surprise his opponents. So I think that's another thing that we're kind of overlooking in terms of strength. It's not just it's versatility, not just strength.
Yeah, and really the only thing that is the limit to it is the timeout. And I'm not a Yonko fanboy, I'm a Akainu fanboy, but like when it comes to Kaido, I do think he was stronger in that fight, just because, let's just say if you had Luffy, a fresh Kaido, and start out Luffy in Gear 5 mode with no assistance at all, right? Like no Law's crew, no Yamato, nobody comes in to help out Luffy. I think Luffy would lose. I think because he would time out and then Kaido would just kill him, you know? Because like we just underestimate how much Kaido took during that whole time, you know, like in terms of just full-on damage and how long he just kept on standing. And Luffy in no way, shape, or form can last that long like Kaido did, just in terms of like total quantitative staying alive, you know. Or
Luffy could turn him into a pizza and throw him. Although Kaido could fly at that point.
He could fly, and I mean, I think, even though, I mean, well, obviously we know Kizaru can fly too, you know.
Yeah.
But like, and I think like really on the whole Admiral versus Yonko thing, like I'm not gonna try to get too much into that, but I think like the only thing you can really say with this whole thing is like, well, I mean, I don't think this is coping. There could be more Kizaru has not shown us, and he hasn't shown us because he is just emotionally dead interiorly right now. And he just doesn't want to fight anymore. You know, like when you kill one of your best friends, like that usually takes the will to fight out of you, you know? Like,
I mean, I don't think that Kizaru's gonna do more in this arc, but he's...
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, he's not gonna be written out of the story.
Yeah, and we might see more from him later on fighting a different opponent or whatever, you know? But... And then there's still like kind of that weird potential theory that he could have been the one feeding Luffy, because we don't know where that food randomly popped up out of, you know? So there's kind of like, we don't know, like he's supposed to be an ambiguous character by his nature, you know? And so like, I think like, because I one thing I will say about this too is like Oda's really, really stubborn when it comes to his fandom disputes and stuff, like the Zoro versus Sanji, and I also think especially the Admiral versus the Yonko thing too, because whenever it seems like the Yonko have one up over the Yonko, he immediately doesn't. So like he embarrasses Green Bull, and then Green Bull takes out Weevil, like right after that, you know. So
Yeah, but that's
he's
not
like,
that's not a Yonko.
no, it's not a Yonko, but he's trying to salvage the reputation. Like he kind of elevates Shanks, you know, right?
But
And then he'll like immediately
Weevil.
take out Weevil.
But it's Weevil.
Kizaru said had the strength of Whitebeard too, but I mean, that's like, yeah, I'm joking. But no, what I'm trying to say is like he cares about these like power scaling dimensions a lot and everything like that. You know, like I mean, people beat the death the whole Akainu versus a Whitebeard thing, for example. You know, where like Akainu basically took out Whitebeard, but you can say, oh, he's weak, but then people say Whitebeard was stronger than a Yonko back then, and some people say he was stronger than Roger, you know. And then so if he's in his old age, just to balance out, and then Akainu fought all the Whitebeard pirates, right? So I'm just saying, like, there's all these like points going back and forth where I can see Oda kind of redeeming Kizaru's power level later on in this arc, like right at the end, because I think Oda's kind of a troll like that, you know.
I don't think it's trolling.
Because, like,
I just think that it's, I don't know. I don't think it's trolling.
Sorry, I mean, he likes to keep the discussion going back and forth.
Yeah.
In terms of like the Zoro versus Sanji thing, he purposely eggs that on. You know, like Sanji gets embarrassed in Wano, and then Sanji has this like, you know, really great stealing moment too. You know, and things like that too, right? And so I can kind of see something similar like that, where it looks like the admirals are taking a lot of L's throughout this arc, and then he kind of like salvages the admiral's reputation a little bit later on in this, you know. So I don't know. Yeah. Those are, I guess, like those are kind of my general thoughts there. I would say, yeah. Sorry. Yeah.
I was just gonna say though, on just with Gear 5 again, it does seem that Luffy is even in this fight with the Gorosei are getting strong. He's getting stronger because just we saw earlier that with Warkari he had trouble punching him, like it would hurt his hand, compared to Jupiter. He punches him in this latest chapter, and it doesn't really faze him all that much. Like he doesn't say like, "Oh, this hurts" or whatever. So, it could just be that Marguerite is naturally more defensive, or I don't know. It could be that Luffy's getting stronger. What do you think about that, or do you think that that's relevant?
I think it's more the defensive thing, if I had to guess between the two. I think like all the Gorosei seem to specialize in one thing, not necessarily having a baseline stat line, I guess, if that makes sense. Warkari definitely seems like a freaking tank, you know, and things like that too.
He's the big pig.
Yeah, I mean, he doesn't have the offensive capabilities with the fire, for example, you know, so which Luffy said that hurt too, you know, right? So yeah, I don't know. Like I said, I think kind of talking about this more with you, I'd say kind of I want to say like my critique is even the power level. I just kind of wish Oda would make more of an effort to portray him taking pain, rather than him just saying it, but say like showing it more, you know. And I think that would like make me feel less like the urge that he's overpowered right now.
So I think with that is that we forget that Luffy's a Zoan, and Zoans are naturally more durable. So I don't know. I think that could lead into it as well. And I don't know. Just as long as Luffy doesn't keep on getting a steady supply of food, because if he is, then Sanji's the most important crewmate to him in terms of
always has
power.
Been. I cannot become the pirate king without you.
Yeah.
End of quote.
But yeah, if he, I'm just trying to think potentially in the future, like what we could see with like Blackbeard, Akainu or something. But it could literally be anything, because Gear 5 is so adaptable. So,
Yeah.
And I think Luffy's gonna get stronger in Elbaf if we eventually end up there. When we eventually end up there.
Yeah, and I just hope. I mean, I don't know. That's just me. Like, I don't mean to hit a dead horse here or anything like that, but just kind of the point. Like, when I see Luffy fight the two guys that are responsible for his brother's death, I do want some degree of like seriousness in it too.
Yeah. I mean, there was seriousness at the end of the Kaido fight and everything. Like, he was showing pain when he was getting hit with the wind scythes and everything, and when he got bit.
And also anger, I'd like to, like some anger would be nice as well, and kind of thing. Like I guess like the fights that really stick out to me the most was like obviously Lucci versus Luffy in Water 7, where you have that scream, yelping at the end, just like doing the gear second into Lucci is like one of my favorite moments, and I think making Akainu into like a pot of porridge and then just like throwing him in a store is kind of like, like it's just not gonna have the same emotional impact, I guess.
Yeah, but I mean, Gear 5's just different because it also, Luffy is supposed to be like this sign of joy to everyone, and him being like angry like that all the time, I think that we're kind of taking for granted what we had before, and this is what Oda wants for Luffy as a character, and we just kind of have to accept that.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say he was angry all the time. I think most of the time he was like happy and joyful, right? But I think like part of the way he shows the joy that comes from his friends and the people he wants to protect and love comes from showing his righteous anger in a fight too, to protect them, the people who bring him joy, so because we get little glimpses from the anime here and there, with the red eyes and the moment where he punched Lucci in that anime fight at Egghead was like really cool too and stuff, and I just think like some of the most memorable fighting moments is when you see Luffy get serious, because it's like, oh shit, like Luffy's such a jokester, now he's getting serious, like there's a cool different side of him, but it doesn't break the fundamental essence of who Luffy is, going from like Mocktown to Water 7, right? To Whole Cake to an extent. You kind of get it for the most part. Yeah, but yeah, I don't know. I think for me, it tends to be more narrative concerns rather than like power scaling concerns, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I think that narratively, I think Oda knows what he's doing. So,
yeah.
But yeah, but bottom line, slightly overpowered, but has a sufficient drawback for Gear 5. That's what I think.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I agree with that. And I think along with like there could be some contextual narrative plot points that can mitigate the full potential of his antagonist too, as we saw with Kaido and Kizaru. I think like that's a way to firmly establish that as well. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So all right. So I say that's it. And so please like and subscribe, everyone. Leave your thoughts below. Is Gear 5 Luffy too powerful? Give your thoughts, yes or no, below, or kind of. You can do that too. And then we should have a Jujutsu Kaisen review coming out soon enough, and then we'll be back for the One Piece chapter review next week.
See ya.